Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Lynn Saturnow with my co-host, Bob Greenberg. Wow, Bob, what a weekend we just had, huh, for sports. Basketball, wrestling, even some swimming. Yeah, how about the basketball? 7 district championships for our local teams, 14 teams moving on. What do you think of that?
It's amazing. I was thinking about this on Sunday. There was a time, Lynn, and of course I've done a long time Monday night talk show with Hugh Ringer on the radio. There were some times where we would invite in a championship team into the studios to interview them and try to honor them a little bit more than normal. But with 7 teams now, you can't do it. And there's just so much success we've had now and a variety of reasons, but we'll never match it again. All 5 District 10 championships on the boys' side that Mercer County teams played in, we won. And 2 on the girls' side. It was one of the more incredible 10 days that I can ever remember.
And the thing is, we criticize 6 classes, but that's all part of it. That's how we won 5 classes. You know, Jamestown never won a district title before, but they beat Commodore Perry, win the Class A title. Isn't that great?
Yeah, and I think that's, there's no question that 6 classes has its issues, and there's some positives on the other side of it, though, and that's one of them. Jamestown never have won a district championship, and there's no question that this last few days and this week as well, preparing for a state tournament game, has got to be one of the best moments in that school and that town's sports history for sure.
Yeah, whether they win or lose, it's still a phenomenal showing for them to be able to move on.
I had Coach Scott Vanoy on our show Monday night, and I asked him where his trophy is. He goes, "It's still on my couch. It's going to sit here all week. I'm not getting it back to the school." So, yeah, no question, he's enjoying himself, and I'm sure that those kids in that program are having a great time as well.
I figured you'd be sleeping with that.
Well, I didn't want to go there.
Well, that's in 1A. Now, in 2A, Farrell and Wilmington, that was a heck of a game before Farrell wins.
You go back to the old saying, Lynn, where it's tough to beat a good team 3 times, and we saw that on multiple occasions last weekend. And Farrell, they got off to a slow start. Wilmington really came in as the much looser team, but Farrell made the big plays down the stretch in that fourth quarter. Eric Hobson particularly, Kai Wright was big. Kobe Hilton had a couple big rebounds. Riante Hammonds hit some threes in the first half. So it was a team effort for the Farrell Steelers. Was not easy, but still a big-time moment for a program that's won a lot of big championships in their day. 20th all-time in school history, district title. First, though, since 2014.
Yeah, and Bob, you had a chance to interview Bobby Stewart, the head coach at Farrell, right after the game. Hey, let's on Monday night show. I mean, let's hear what he had to say.
Coach, congratulations. I know it's a great time of year, especially when you're lifting up that gold trophy, winning a district title.
Most definitely. This is the famous best time of the year. It becomes our March Madness, and we're going to embrace every minute of it.
How much pressure did you and your team feel going into the tournament as you went in as, in most people's minds, the clear-cut favorite?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. It's a good question, especially when you're playing a team multiple times. There's no different trick that you can play. It's just going out there and competing. And, that was one of the main things we talked about was competing every day in practice, making sure that practice is your best games. And when you're able to do that, you should be able to transfer that into your regular ball game.
I think one of the more amazing stats this year, Coach, is the fact that Farrell went undefeated in a region that will send 4 teams to the state tournament. So, which meant you had to sweep 3 teams that are in the state tournament, and you had to beat them 3 times, 2 of them. So that says a lot about the way your team played and how consistent you guys were all year.
Most definitely. I mean, that speaks pretty well, big volume for our ball team. When you're able to beat a team multiple times. And especially in our region, I mean, we really have some real good caliber teams there, and to be able to go out there day in and game out and meet the team and put forth our best effort.
Just talk a little bit about the game on Friday. Your team uncharacteristically fell behind early on. Did not have the same energy that I've seen down the stretch, but that turned around in the second half. Just talk about what you saw on that sideline all night.
Well, we started out slow. We didn't do some of the things that we normally do. I thought the physicality part played a part in it. But you got to give Wilmington credit. I mean, they shot the ball fairly well. We were very fortunate to stay close as we did. I thought that at the end and through the middle, our defense did prevail.
No question about that. Had some big plays, and Eric Hobson, who has been so big for the program the last couple of years, coming up maybe the biggest down the stretch for you.
Yeah, he's starting to mature. His IQ is starting to be where it needs to be in order to help lead this team. We called last couple of sets for him where he made the three in the corner, and as well as the last shot as well when we went a 1-4 low set, and he was able to take his man to the hoop and finish it off.
I had tweeted earlier today about Riante Hammonds as a young man who is under the radar, but he was big for you guys Friday night. In some cases, kept you kind of in the game in that first half, hitting 3 threes.
Yes, Riante put the time in this summer. He was a JV player last year. He really wasn't a point guard, but he spent the time in the summer, and he showed you by putting the time in and dedicating yourself what the outcome you can be as increasing your basketball skills.
Of course, Kai Wright and Kobe Hilton, among others, playing big games. It's got to be, for your perspective, comforting to know that anytime you get the ball into Kai's hands, there's a good chance something good's going to happen.
Most definitely. His vision on the court and his leadership and the mentality that he has, it's to try to win at any cost. And when he does that, he doesn't talk about it. He's be about it, and the kids seem to follow him.
It seems to me that the football season and their success has carried over, and the football players that play on your basketball team are kind of in a we won't lose type mentality.
Most definitely. I'm a firm believer that winning breeds winning, and when you're used to winning, you find ways to win. It was an ugly victory the last game, but we were still able to pull it together at the end and come out victorious.
Coach, Saturday night you play Shenango, kind of renewing a old rivalry from the old WPIL days. Just a thought or two about the Shenango Wildcats.
Well, they're pretty scrappy. They like to push the ball up the floor. The coach's son, I think he's the point guard, a little left-hander. Seems to be a pretty good ball player. He does a lot of penetration. They like to do a lot of high pick and roll, and, they like to get up and down the floor. Hopefully we can beat them in the track meet.
Well, Coach Stewart, we appreciate your time tonight. Have a great week of preparation, and good luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's quite a coach.
You know what? There's no question. And he has kind of brought back the old Farrell basketball mentality and, talking about how, Kai Wright, he's his nephew, he's been related, and, he's got that whole history of the Farrell basketball program kind of on his shoulders. Interesting to feel, talk to him about how the additional pressure you get to this point of the year, especially following that football team success. A lot of people think Farrell's going to go all the way in basketball now, too, which won't be easy.
Oh.
But one step at a time, and it was really a great night for Farrell basketball on Friday.
In fact, in 2A, we have two other teams heading on, too, Lakeview and West Middlesex. Lakeview beat West Middlesex in a really another close game.
And that's, you think about the region there. And, and you heard in the interview with Coach Stewart that Farrell went undefeated in a region this year, and with having to beat 3 teams multiple times that are all in the state tournament. So they beat Middlesex 3 times, they beat Wilmington 3 times, they beat Lakeview twice. So 8-0 against those 3 teams. That tells you a lot about how good Farrell and how consistent they've been all year.
And a lot of the games were close, but they won them.
They won them, and I think that's the key. They won them. The football mentality, the success they had in football has now carried over, and all these football players are kind of in that we're not going to lose mentality, and I think it's showing up on the floor.
Yeah, it shows up in AAA too with Sharon. Some of those football players are part of that team, and they play a big role.
I think it's in Sharon, back-to-back championships. Frankie Schaefer and Josh Torr, you're talking about part of a rare feat, becoming the first Mercer County team ever to win back-to-back football and basketball titles. That's never happened before. So, and Tora and Schaefer were on all those teams, and of course Ethan Porterfield has been, as good as it gets in a program that's had as much history and success that Sharon has had. This guy's right at the top of the list of being one of their great players.
Right.
All-time leading scorer, going to IUP, getting to a state championship game, back-to-back district titles. Ethan Porterfield is special, and next Wednesday on this program we're going to have Ethan on, so look forward to talking to him.
Yeah, and also congratulations to Coach Zach Sarver. He's done a great job up there with Sharon.
Sharon has always had talent, but I think Zach Sarver, that hire they had 4 years ago at Sharon, has kind of solidified the program, and they're doing things that they've never done before. Now, the challenge of trying to repeat or match what they did last year won't be easy. Making that run to Hershey last year was as memorable as it gets, but I would not count Sharon out. This is a great coaching staff. They have a bunch of very good players, and who knows, they can make another run.
Yeah, we don't have anybody in 4A this year. Or no, we have
5A.
Hickory and Grove City. We don't have anybody in 5A.
5A, right.
But Hickory and Grove City battled for the 4A title, and that was another one of those games that was really tight.
Another one of those games. Both those programs had gone a long time without winning a district championship. It's funny because I think in Mercer County we are spoiled at times with the success of some of our teams, and we think, it's district championship, it's easy to do. But Hickory had not won one for 25 years. Grove City had not won one since 1999, and that was at stake. They had played each other twice. Both games were one-sided with Hickory wins in the regular season, but Grove City came out with a great game plan, and they battled from start to finish. Hickory had to make some great plays, and realistically, if it wasn't for Donald Whitehead, who scored the first 15 points in the fourth quarter, there was a really good chance Grove City would have pulled the upset Friday night. But still a great game. Both teams move on, but the irony of it all is that Grove City getting a much more favorable matchup on Friday, playing a Bedford team that I think is just barely 500, and Hickory's going to have their hands full with a very good Ambridge team. So Hickory gets the championship, but Grove City gets a little favorable draw on Friday night.
That's the way it works sometimes. You really don't know how it's going
to
come
You don't know.
out. No. And how about in 6A? Kennedy, they won something like $2 million District 10 titles.
You can't count them on your hands and fingers
Right.
anymore.
So they move on. They were in the sub-regional finals.
Sub-regional finals.
They beat Alderdice in a pretty good game.
Very good game. The sub-regional final was just a seeding game.
Right.
But even though the coaches both said it didn't matter, it mattered at the gates because there was a huge crowd there. District 10, who hosted the game, they were taking $8 tickets and had no problem about that. Big crowd. Alderdice is a talented team, no question about it. Kennedy, they were challenged, and I think the game would have been even 1,000 times more interesting if it was a do or die game.
Right.
And if Kennedy was up 1 in the fourth quarter, it would be interesting to see how Kennedy responds. I think the challenge right now for Kennedy is trying to get that chemistry back. They had Mattia Kunzo had been out for a long stretch. Manus Norman had missed a bunch of games. They had Halan Amos was starting, so now there's been some shifting there, and you could see it on the floor. They're so talented. I think they can overcome it. But I will say this: the 6A bracket is loaded.
Yeah.
Fox Chapel shouldn't be a major challenge on Saturday for Kennedy, but there are some teams on the western side of the bracket that come from the east that will definitely give Kennedy a battle. If they get to Hershey, it will not be clearly as easy as it's been the last 3 years.
Yeah, there's such a big difference between 1A and 6A.
No question about that.
Yeah. Over to girls, talk about Kennedy winning. They've won their 9th straight girls title. They beat Farrell in another pretty good game. And Farrell's young.
Farrell's very young. Both teams are young.
Oh, yeah.
Kennedy only has one senior, but Farrell's got so many freshmen that are key players, starting 3 of them. And it was a battle. Kennedy really, they beat them badly in one game this year. The second game was much closer, and it was a battle in the first quarter. Kennedy went on a big run, led by a bunch of their players, and then Kennedy just had too much talent at the end. Farrell's a team that has, I think the future looks very bright for them. Kennedy also looks very bright. It won't be as easy for Kennedy coming up this Saturday. They're going to have a big challenge. It's a kind of a weird setup we'll talk about, but still 9 in a row is impressive no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, they're like you say, you don't know who you're going to meet in the brackets whenever you win your title.
What happened was, and I know it's confusing because historically, when you're a District 10 champion, you're not traveling. In the bracket, Kennedy is listed as 10-1, but in the state's mind, they're actually 9-5. What has happened was because there are so few teams in District 10 in single A, the state wanted to combine District 10 and District 9 together as a sub-regional. The districts got together and elected not to do that to make it easier for everybody, and District 9 gave District 10 one of their berths, which actually was their 9-5 slot. So even though it doesn't say 9-5 on the bracket, Kennedy as the 10-1 team is looked at as the 9-5 team, which is why they're playing 7-2, which is why they're traveling. It is what it is. It's a kind of a crazy world we're living in, but it won't be an easy game, no question about it, for Kennedy.
It was similar to the Kennedy boys setup, where they actually went to a sub-regional.
Correct.
Rather than the way this thing was set up.
And District 9 they have a full field. So in single A girls, I think 15 or 16 teams. So if they would have put Farrell and Kennedy inside their tournament, you'd have a lot more travel, a lot more inconvenience, and ultimately the two District 10 teams got a chance to play for championships, which they would not have if they would have been put into District 9.
The unfortunate thing is they sat for about 2 weeks without playing.
And
that's horrible.
That's the challenge for a lot of these teams, and we'll find out how it works out here. They'll have to sit again all week.
One of our better teams that we're sending into these playoffs are the West Middlesex girls, and they rocked Maplewood over the weekend. I mean, they're going to be hard to stop.
What a juggernaut they have been. One of the more incredible stories, if you look at it over the past decade or so, Middlesex had never won a PIAA playoff game in their history. They had won only 2 District 10 playoff games before 5 years ago. And now they have won 4 District 10 championships. They've made it to the Sweet 16 3 years in a row. And Mike Williams and his staff and this group of girls have really put that program on the map. They were never on the map. They are on the map now and then some. They're ranked in the state. And they'll be a favorite to win a couple playoff games. But with that said, the 2A bracket is loaded. I think I saw it yesterday that 8 of the top 10 teams in the ranking, which the rankings are the rankings, but 8 of the top 10 are from the West. So it will not be easy. There will not be really any easy games for Middlesex. Maybe this Friday night they may get one with Winchester Thurston, but after that it's going to get really tough.
Yeah, once you get to the playoffs, you never know.
You never know.
Just got to go at it, that's all.
No question.
And speaking of going at it, we've talked several times in the show about how tough 5A is in District 10 with the girls. And Slippery Rock lost to Warren in the championship game the other night, but they can make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, Warren's had a historical year and a really good run lately, and that was a good matchup, just too much for Warren. And you're right about Slippery Rock. They have enough talent to make a run, but the issue they've gotten into is that, and they're not the only one, Grove City and Hickory among others, they're all 4A teams. And they elected on their own to move up to 5A. And it's worked out well through the District 10 tournament, but once you get to the state bracket and you're up a class, none of our local teams have won a PIAA playoff game when they moved up to 5A. It will be a challenge for Slippery Rock coming up this weekend. They can do it, but when you move up, it makes it even more challenging.
Yeah, they all wanted to avoid Villa Maria.
Wanted to avoid Villa. Villa's still there in 4A, and ironically, Mercier's Prep is now in 3A.
Right.
So 3A and 4A have those two powerhouses from Erie, and at this point, there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, and you mentioned 3A. The consolation game was a heck of a game between Greenville and Lakeview. I mean, Greenville won in a close battle. They beat them by 30 points the last time they played, and this one, Gary Burke, what a great coaching job over at Lakeview.
No question. And first off on the Lakeview side, just a wonderful job by Gary Burke. Great coaching showing up at this time of year happens all the time, and Gary Burke put on a masterful performance in my mind. On the Greenville side, Coach Richards talked to me before the game, and she wasn't sure. She was hoping her team was going to be able to overcome that disappointing loss in the semifinals, and it was clear they didn't overcome that because they were still playing with some nerves. It was a do-or-die game, but it got into some foul trouble as well. But they made the plays down the stretch, defensively especially, and you feel good for Greenville because they've had too good of a year, in my mind, for it to have ended in the District 10 playoffs. So I know they're excited. Their first state playoff game, I think, since 2012 coming up. Yeah. So it's a big moment for their program, and that senior class especially, who've had a really a lot of success. I congratulate them.
Yeah, but then again, it was another one of those meeting the team for the third time. And with a good coach like Gary Burke, he had them prepared.
There's no question. All the little tweaks you make, and they know each other so well. No, I think the Greenville nerves got the most of them. Lakeview came out with nothing to lose. So you put all those variables together, and it really was a fantastic game. Lakeview almost had a shot to tie the game in the waning seconds, but still congratulations to Lakeview and obviously to Greenville. We also didn't mention on the boys' side, we should congratulate Sharpsville. The boys.
No doubt.
I just thought about them. What a run that Matt Dorisco has had. They were into the state tournament for the first time since 2011, and coming back from big deficit to beat Mercyhurst Prep. I mean,
that was a shocker for Prep.
What a shocker there. So we have 10 Mercer County boys teams and 4 Mercer County area girls teams that are going into the state tournament. 14, Lynn. That is, it's going to challenge the Herald.
What are we going to do?
That challenges all of us. We will cover as many as we can and then get you results on the other ones.
Yeah, that's all. And you can catch it next week. We'll be talking about all of it.
No question.
Well, just like the state wrestling. Once again, Mercer County, we're sending 18 kids down to the state wrestling tournament. A lot of them are going to come home with medals, maybe even some gold medals. That'll be great.
Yeah, and Bo Bayless, I think the headline of it all, winning his 4th region championship, becoming only the 5th Reynolds Raider ever to do that, and that's about as rare a feat as you're going to get. And Reynolds, I think, sending 9 wrestlers to Hershey.
Right.
And I think reading some of the comments from Coach Taylor, 9 was very good, but they were still missing maybe 1 or 2 that they were hoping also get down there.
Yeah, they lost a couple close matches along the way, but the region was really tough this year. District 9 even brought some really good wrestlers, so it was a good tournament.
Greenville's having, I think, 5 going on.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Great run by Coach Reynolds there at Greenville. And then you had from Sharon,
Sully
Allen winning a region title after getting beat in district. So that's a great
district and section.
And section. So that's a great turnaround there.
But there we go. 3. You have to wrestle the same guy
same
3
kid
times.
3 times. So
Mason Karpinski, and they were all close. Those 2 guys are both great. I look for both on the place down there.
The one thing you look for is, of course, Gary Steen of Reynolds trying to repeat as a state champion, would become only the 3rd Raider ever to win as a sophomore. But in some of the notes I looked at this morning, that 106 bracket is loaded.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's 4 wrestlers that are ranked in the country in the top 20. Gary's one of them. So if he wins state back-to-back, he's going to have to beat some really good wrestlers to do it.
Now, it's interesting. This year, for the first time, the PIA ranked the region champions. They've never done that before when they've set their brackets. So Gary Steen's ranked 1st at 106. Bo Bayless is ranked 2nd at 120. Jacob McMaster of Greenville is 2nd at 220. Bryce Knopf of Greenville is 3rd at 126. Sully Allen, who we talked about from Sharon, is 4th at 152. And Brady Gentile is 4th at 170. It's the first time they've ever ranked them like that, so they could set the brackets different than they have in the past.
And I'm sure people are out there thinking right now, wait a minute. They can rate and seed the wrestlers at the state tournament. Why can't they do the same for basketball?
Yeah.
That would be interesting, even though it's a kind of a different world. I know wrestling has a point system.
Yes.
And your record and some of your quality wins and tournament wins that they use, and history. Gary Steen's a defending state champion, so he's going to get bonus points for that. Wrestling always seems to be above the curve in my mind when it comes to stuff like this. Kudos to their coaches, particularly. I'm sure who've been pushing for this,
they have been pushing for
it.
And
I really like that, and that will assure, in most cases, the best wrestlers aren't meeting up in the quarterfinals or the semifinals.
Right, that really helps.
That is good.
Big difference.
I like that. That's great.
But they only ranked the region champs. Now there's some kids that got upset, so it's hard to dictate that kind of thing. In the past, the only time they ever changed the bracket is if 2 state champs ended up on the same side as the bracket, then they moved them. But this is different, but it's a great thing to do.
And that is this weekend in Hershey. Also swimming, Lynn. They had the District 10 champions last weekend. Grove City girls team took 3rd. Emma Wilson won a couple events.
Once again.
She's a
defending state champ.
Juggernaut.
I hope she can get another one down.
I think she tied her the District 10 record in the 50s. So she will be a heavy favorite to do very well at Bucknell, which won't be this weekend, but it'll be next week. That the swimming championships, and so we'll look out and keep track of all those athletes as well.
Yeah, and we'll catch you up on everything next week. We'll be busy. Hope we get some sleep along the way. Thanks for stopping in.